Hi everybody, it's Nikki here and welcome to a bookish video. So today's video is my August wrap up. This is where I talk about all the books that I read during the month of August and let you know my thoughts and feelings on them. So, I forgot to do the statistics again. So I will do that at the end of the video. We'll get there. First things first, I'm going to talk about the bomb book. The bomb book that was picked for me in the month of August, which was a new feature that I brought into Bookgammon. And the idea between the bomb book and the star book is the bomb book is a book that I really don't want to read, and the star book is a book that I really, really want to read. And good old Bookgammon, as per friggin' usual, gave me the book I didn't want to read first. For the first time playing that, gave me the bomb book. Now, I do want to, before I say anything about my thoughts and feelings of the bomb book, I do want to say that I did get a few comments in August Bookgammon TBR video that a few of you really enjoyed the bomb book and it was one of your favourites and you hoped that I would enjoy it as well. I didn't. If you want to know what the bomb book was, I will link my August Bookgammon TBR in the video, in the description box down below. I no longer have the book. I got rid of it. If I could have burnt it, I would have. I hated it. Okay, let me explain myself. I gave the bomb book, which is Every Day by David Leviathan, a 1-star rating. But the truth is, I didn't actually finish it. I DNF'd it about 50, maybe 60 pages before the end. Because I was triggered. I was triggered by something that was said in the book, and I was so triggered by it, it took me almost a whole week to calm down from it. I'm not normally an aggressive person, but I really wanted to throw this book at the wall. And I am aware, as some of you said in your comments, and I acknowledge, some of you love this book, and it may just be that your triggers are not the same as mine. So you're maybe thinking, what was so bad about it? I loved it. We all have our triggers, and mine is obesity rep. And there is a point in this book, about 50 or 60 pages near the end apparently, where obesity is being represented in a not so pleasant way. Throughout the whole book we got almost like an A to Z of teenagers, I want to say. The storyline is that we have this A character who wakes up every day in a different teenager's body, has to live the day in their life, and then the next morning they wake up in a different teenager's body. And throughout the book we get a waking up in a different A to Z of teenagers throughout the whole book. So we had the popular boy who doesn't treat his girlfriend right. We have the pretty girl. We have the jock. We have the girl who doesn't even know she's pretty. We have the nerd, the geek. We have the religious teenager. We have a bully. We have a transgender teenager. We have a gay teenager in a relationship. And throughout the whole of this book, there was a lot of understanding and respect towards these characters. And I could see, yes, for the first, 300 pages of it, I really was thinking, this is an okay book. Yeah, it's not so bad as I thought it was going to be. And it was gearing up to be a 2-3 star kind of book. And just to clear up what my star ratings are for, a 3 star is, it's a good book. I'm really glad I read it. but I will probably unhaul this very soon. And a 2-star book is, it was okay, I could have lived my life without ever having read this, and I will definitely unhaul, but it was okay. So my 2 stars is not actually a bad rating, it's just it was okay, but I'm probably never gonna think about it again. So it was looking between a 2 and a 3 stars. And then A wakes up in the body of an obese teenager, and the description of he has the emotional equivalent of a burp was used to describe this teenage boy. I can feel myself getting angry just thinking about it. To be described as a burp. No. I slammed that book shut so fast and threw it down and shouted no at it so fast. For a book that showed such understanding and respect for the LGBTQ plus characters, and for a character of colour, a person of colour in the book previously, to suddenly show such hate and disgust and disrespect towards an obese character, it made me sick. It made me angry, and I am not happy. No. I know some people think that because they choose to be obese, that, you know, they bring it on themselves. Can I tell you that as an obese person, I don't choose to be this way. If I could, I would be skinny. But I have spent years getting this big. And yes, through not eating right, through not exercising, through not taking care of my body. But you know why? Because my mind was in a bad place. Because I didn't love myself, I couldn't take care of myself properly. No obese person chooses to be obese. So we don't deserve your hate, and we don't deserve your disgust. And the way that this character was treated in the book, with the way that the author described this boy and the things that he was doing and the things that he was feeling, no, just no. I gave it 1 star. I didn't put it as a DNF on my book, on my Goodreads, because I felt like I deserved at least to have it count towards my Goodreads goal, because, you know, I had read the majority of it. Now you might be saying, Nicola, but this character gets like, you know, gets more respect near the end of the book. If you just carried on, the character does get treated with more respect. I tried to read on thinking maybe this is just, you know, but no, the description of this poor obese teenage boy just got worse, and I couldn't take it. So I'm sorry, but the bomb book was an absolute bomb, and I exploded it. I went to set fire to it and rip out its pages. I hated it, and I'm sorry, but we scream a lot in the bookish community for better POC rep, for better LGBTQ plus rep, for better diversity shown in our books, and yet obesity is still misrepresented. We are always the fat, ugly, disgusting characters, the villains, or the comedy characters, and I'm sick and tired of it. Can you see my passion here? And I know there are a couple of books that have some good representation. I'm aware of that, but they are generally in the contemporary genre. I've seen some good representation in the contemporary genre. I'm still waiting for good obese character representation in fantasies and other genres. This was a bad representation in a contemporary setting. It was a vile and disgusting representation. But I just want to see better representation of obesity in books, because you know what? We hate ourselves enough without social media and society hating on us as well. So, you know, all the hate that people have towards us because we're obese, please believe we already hate ourselves more than enough without your input as well. So I know you, my wonderful subscribers, are not as nasty and mean and horrible as to be mean and nasty about somebody's weight. At least I hope you are, because you watch my channel. But we need this to change, okay? Obesity is not a thing for ridicule and disgust. Let's put it that way. I'm gonna leave it at that because I'm getting really angry. I'm sorry. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I've been struggling with my weight and I've been trying to do something about it. It's not as easy as it sounds or how people make it out to be. But yeah, we'll leave it at that. My bomb book was a bomb. It was not good. I didn't like it. 1 star. Let's move on to something else. Let's move on to something that I really did love. Let me have a look. Okay, so let's move on to something that I did enjoy. Adam 2 by Alistair Chisholm. This was great. This was amazing. This was wonderful. I gave this one 5 stars, I think. Yeah, 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. Alistair Chisholm wrote Orion Lost last year, which I read. It was my favourite book of 2020. And I wouldn't say this was my favourite book of 2021 yet, but I really did enjoy it. It's about a robot who has been living in the basement of a lost building for over 200 years, and then 2 children managed to kind of break their way into his basement, and he realizes that the world outside has changed. He has been living every day the same, exactly like a robot does. They just do the same thing over and over again. And he realizes that the world outside has changed. Robots are fighting humans, humans are fighting robots. There's a war going on between the two. And which side is he really on? Because he is a robot, but he has this special ability to think and feel more human-like. And so in the end, it's up to Adam 2 to kind of save them all. And I loved it. I need a Fetch. There's a character in here called Fetch, and I need him. I need him in my life. He's cute, he's adorable, I want one. So yeah, I absolutely love this. I am beginning to realise that maybe middle grade sci-fi is something I do enjoy. Sci-fi in adults, not so much. It's too techy for me. It goes right over my head. I'm sorry, I'm not clever enough for that. YA sci-fi is okay, I can handle it, but there's got to be a good plot to go along with it to kind of push the sci-fi bit along. But middle grade sci-fi, totally my thing. Love it. And I think we should get more in the middle grade genre. So yeah, I want more sci-fi middle grade because I absolutely love this. I would highly recommend this. Read this to your kids, read this for yourself. It doesn't matter how old you are. It's a good book. It's a really good book. And if you know and love Edinburgh, which is where I believe this is set, you're going to really enjoy this because there are some scenes in here that you're going to know where this character is walking through, because it really describes the scenery and the setting really, really well. So for anybody who knows and loves Edinburgh, you're probably going to enjoy this because you're going to be like, oh, I know where that is. I've never been to Edinburgh, unfortunately. It is a place that I do want to visit, however, so very, very excited and glad I read this one. The next book is the second book in the Skullduggery Pleasant series. I've done a lot of filming today, my voice is going a little. So we have Playing with Fire, which, as I say, is the second book in the series. I listened to this on audiobook, and I will say I kind of missed some of the points because I wasn't quite concentrating. But it says, great audiobook on Scribd, a lot of action. There was spiders and vampires, and it's very funny. That's one of the things. Yes, spiders and vampires, people, just be warned. I know some of you don't like spiders. But yeah, the one thing I do get from this middle grade series is that it's really, really funny. I like the humour in it. It is really good. I have the third book in my collection. I don't know if I will continue after I finish the third book, because there's a lot of books. I mean, there's a lot of books in this series. I don't know if I will continue with the series once I've finished, unless I can find them on audio. But I don't intend on buying any more in this series. I don't think I enjoy it that much that I want to purchase more. And this one I gave a 3 stars. The next book I read was I Know Where She Is by S.B. Caves. And this is a story about a mother whose daughter was kidnapped 10 years ago, I want to say. And and one day she gets a note through her door saying, I know where she is. And she goes to her ex-husband, who has since left her since their daughter was abducted. And she's like, this person says she knows where she is. We've got to find her. We new hope to find our daughter. And her ex-husband is kind of like, it's a hoax. They do this all the time. Let it go. It's over. It's done. She's dead. Leave it alone, kind of thing. And the mother is like, no, our daughter could be alive. This girl knows where she is. Her ex-husband doesn't want to know. Her ex-husband has, however, since the abduction of their daughter, made his fortune from doing interviews and book releases and things about his daughter's abduction. So he's made a lot of money from his missing daughter. And she kind of, the mother kind of resents this of him. Like, he's used their daughter's abduction to really make a name for himself. And she's literally, you know, she went into alcoholism and all of this. She didn't do very well from losing her daughter. So she kind of resents him a little bit, and he kind of is like, shut up, woman, kind of thing. However, being a mother, she doesn't let this go. She finds out the person who sent her this letter, and together they try and find her daughter. This is gruesome. I will give you trigger warnings for rape and torture, cruelty, because this book got quite dark. There is on the page sort of torture and description of abuse and rape. It's very dark. This wasn't what I thought it was going to be going in. It was very hard to read at times. I had to read it in short, sharp bursts because too much made me feel physically sick, and kind of, I would put this in the same category as My Dark Vanessa. It is a book that intrigued me, that made me want to keep reading, but it was not comfortable. I was not in a happy place reading this book at all. This made me feel very, very ill and very uncomfortable. So make sure that when you do, if you do decide to pick this up, that you are in a good place mentally, because if you're not, this is going to really drag you down. My notes on this was trigger warnings for child abduction, rape and torture, very violent and had an open ending. This, I don't believe, has a sequel, but the end of this book had that open ending. As I say, it had an ending where you were like, what did she say? I won't say much more than that, but what did she say? That's all I'm going to say. And it was just like, I had to check on Goodreads whether there was a sequel to this or not. There isn't, and I'm gutted because I want a sequel. I want another book to this. I want to know what happens next. I really did enjoy it. I really did. What did I give it? I gave this a 3 stars. I think, thinking about it now, I'd probably say it was closer to a 4 star, because I did enjoy the story and I do think about it sometimes. But I think when I finished it, I was so grossed out by what I'd read, because it is not a nice story, that I just felt a bit sickly after reading it. So that maybe dragged it down a little bit, but I think it is more like a 4 star, 3.5 to 4 stars. So yeah, I did enjoy this, but it was uncomfortable reading, but I did read it. So that's that one. The next book I read was The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Bronte. My notes on this say, a man's unrequited love at first, the old-fashioned sin of leaving a violent husband, and enjoyed the diary entry way of telling the part of the story. So yeah, this is a story about a woman who moves into an area, nobody knows anything about her, and one man is intrigued by her and thinks she's very beautiful and tries to get to know her, but she's very standoffish with him, and she doesn't really give him her backstory of who she is and why she's there with her son but no husband. And then eventually, finally, he gets the story from her, and it's the fact that she left a violent and horrible, nasty husband. And I did enjoy it. And I think this would benefit especially from a reread, again in the future, just to get more of those details from it. But it was interesting that on this case, we had a man who was seeking the love and attention from a standoffish woman. Whereas with a lot of classics, it's always the woman who is, or from my experience anyway, the classics that I've read up till now, it's always been the woman who's had the unrequited love of a man, who she's had to work hard to get noticed or whatever. So I really like this. I really did. I like the writing style. I did really, really enjoy this, and I gave this 3 stars as well. The next book I read was a reread, and I was quite happy to be rereading Dracula, the graphic novel by Classical Comics. So I have read this before, gave it 5 stars the first time. I've given it 5 stars again. I love Dracula. Dracula is my favourite classic of all time. I have multiple copies of this, both in the novel form and this graphic novel form. I love it. The artwork in here is just so good. I love it. I love the story of Dracula. I love these classical comics. If you're wanting to read classics but you don't think you can deal with a novel, try picking up the classical comics, because they're amazing. I will sing the high praises of these with my dying breath, because I love them. I think they're brilliant. 5 stars. My notes were great artwork, clear storytelling, love Mina. Mina's my favourite character in Dracula. I think she's such a strong, brave woman, and even though at one point the men do kind of say to her, you stay back, we'll go off and fight, she still is there doing her bit. I think Mina is the most important character in Dracula because she is the one that helps them discover what everything is. She's the pivotal character in Dracula, I think. For me, I truly believe that. So yeah, I love Dracula and I love the graphic novel, and I will read this once a year at least, because I love it that much. This is kind of, having the graphic novel of Dracula allows me to delve back into my favourite classic without having to read the novelisation, which can be, you know, quite long and quite hard to read because of the Old English language. So I get to delve into the world that I love without having to do that. So yeah, I love this. I love this so much. And I will reread it over and over again. 5 stars. Great. The next book I read was another middle grade. It is The Monster Who Wasn't by T.C. Shelley. Oh, this was a hard slog. So I wanted to DNF from about halfway through. Didn't care about the characters. Liked Bladder, who is a grumpy gargoyle. A debut, but it is a debut and the author has potential. So yeah, I gave this, where is you? 2 stars, which, as I say, for my my star rating, 2 stars is, it was okay. I could have gone my life without ever having read it, and I'm gonna unhaul this soon. Yeah, this wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. This wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. It's a kind of like a Hunchback of Notre Dame kind of storytelling. But this boy is basically born when a new baby laughs and a dying person's sigh. And he's created because these 2 things happened at the same time in one family. And so he's a bit of a special kind of character, and he's born into the monster world where all monsters are born at this kind of like event that they all turn up to, and then they claim the monsters that belong to their type. So the gargoyles claim their gargoyles, and the monsters claim theirs, and the goblins claim their goblins, and that kind of thing. Anyway, the king goblin, is it king goblin? King of the ogres, sorry. He decides that he wants this special monster because he has these special powers. And special thing about him. And he tries to nab him, but the boy manages to escape first and runs away with the gargoyles, who hide him at the top of this church. And the gargoyles were probably the best part of this story, to be honest. There's an angel who helps him as well. Helps him to learn to be human, because he is a human boy, but he is technically a monster. The gargoyles were, as I say, the best part. The angel, he was lovely, as all angels are. And yeah, it was kind of... I was bored. As I say, I didn't really connect with the characters. I was just bored. I was just really bored. But it did have little moments where I'd find myself giggling, mainly at the gargoyles. Mainly at Bladder, the gargoyle, because he's grumpy, and I love grumpy characters. And there were moments where I was thinking, yes, this is quite good. And then moments where I was like, oh, is it not finished yet? So yeah, 2 stars for me. It wasn't terrible, but I'm probably going to unhaul this. Well, I'm definitely going to unhaul this, and I'm probably not going to think about this anymore after this. So yeah, there was that. The next book I read was a book that I actually got, that I borrowed from one of the ladies from my book club, because she said I might enjoy this because it contains mermaids. It doesn't contain mermaids, but it does contain a selkie, which is a seal that changes into a human. I think it's more of a Scottish kind of folk tale rather than mermaids. So it is The Girl from the Sea by Molly Knox Ostertag. So that is what it looks like. And it is a female-female romance. And it is a story of this young girl who is realising that she has feelings for other girls and kind of is a little bit scared of admitting the truth of her emotions. Her parents have divorced and her dad has moved away, so she's not happy, or her dad has died or something. She no longer has her father in her life, I know that much. And this selkie comes along and meets up with her, and the two develop feelings for each other, but the girl just can't admit the truth to her friends, and so is constantly trying to hide the selkie from her friends. And there is also at the time an environmental issue that the selkie is trying to solve, and this causes some issues between the two girls. I love this. I said, my notes say about love, friendship, family and confidence to be who you are with no shame. Cute and adorable, and this does have positive obese rep. The selkie being, I guess, being from a seal, is slightly on the plus size. This was good representation. I know it's probably because she's a selkie, but I liked the fact that she was depicted as a rather chubby kind of plus size girl, and I liked that because it wasn't mentioned, it wasn't a feature, it wasn't a part of the reason why the girls hated her or anything like that. It wasn't mentioned. It wasn't even a part of the storyline. She just happened to be plus size, and that's what I want to see. I want to see plus size characters whose obesity isn't part of the storyline. they just are, you know. And I loved it. I really loved it. I gave this 5 stars. Yeah, I gave this 5 stars. I am going to have to return this back to my friend from the book club, but I'm going to go and buy myself a copy because I think this is a book that I'm definitely going to want to reread again in the future. So yeah, I'm going to go and buy myself a copy of this and give this one back to my friend. The next book I read was a library book, and that is Spirit Bound, which is book 5 in the Vampire Academy series by Rochelle Mead. I love this series. I love it. I am on to the final book. I'm going to be reading that in September, so I'm so excited to see how this story is going to finish. My notes say lots of action, twists and turns, court politics and friendships being tested. This was brilliant. They've kind of moved away from the school setting now, and they've moved into the royal courts. And it's just, the story is really getting good, and I cannot wait to see how this finishes. I gave this... I gave this 4 stars. I am seriously thinking about purchasing copies of my own of this series because I've really enjoyed these books. I fly through them so quickly as well, even though they're big books. I fly through them so quickly. I know I could reread these without too much difficulty. I would definitely love to reread these again in the future. I'm trying to get the red editions though, if I am going to purchase this this series, but they are harder to get hold of, mainly only through like secondhand bookshops and eBay kind of places that I found the red editions. But yeah, I am hoping to try and find those. But other than that, I don't mind just re-lending them out of the library until then if I want to reread in the future. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. Gave this 4 stars, loved it. Cannot wait for the final. The next book I read was my non-fiction, and that was Black and British by David Olusoga. This is the children's copy of Black and British. He has written an adult's version, but I chose to purchase the children's version because I thought it would be a lot simpler and easier for me to take in, because sometimes with adult non-fiction it's just a little bit too jargony for me. Is that a word? Jargon. And it's just a bit too intellectual. I mean, I'm intelligent, but I'm not like, you know, university intelligence. I never went to university, so, you know, well, I did open university, but I haven't finished my history course that I started. It's just a thing. So my notes on this was educational, well written and presented, quick to read, and I never felt bogged down with the info dumping. So that is the thing. I generally tend to read my non-fiction very, very slowly. It takes a while for the information to go in. This did not happen with this book. I read this in a day. I started this one day and I finished it the very next day. It was so quick, so easy to read. This is a perfect book for children to learn about the history of Black people in the British Isles. It starts from way back, way back in time, right back to Romans. Yes, even when the Romans were conquering Britain, there were Black people in Britain. And I loved seeing the way that this was beautifully written, with no anger, there was no animosity in this. I felt like the author was writing this from a positive place, wanting to educate rather than to admonish, you know? I think I've used the right word there. There's a lot of anger about the history of Black people and Britain and the Western world, and to right, they should. But this came across as beautifully written and easy to take in. There was lots of pictures and little snippets of things for me to read as well, to keep the interest up. This book should be in every school. That's my true belief. I think that kids need books like this in their school library because it's educational, and it was written from a very positive mindset. This is an author wanting to educate, not to hate on the British people for the treatment of Black people in its past. So yes, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I gave this one 5 stars. So yeah, I really thoroughly enjoyed this one. It's just brilliant. I think it should be in every school. The next book I read was this beautiful edition of City of Spells by Alexander Christo. This is a Fairy Loot edition. And my notes for this was, the characters and their relationships with each other are what carry this story. There's great banter and some time hops in travel, which are not on the page. So yeah, there were some instances where the characters would travel, but you wouldn't see that on the page. And so the time hop was like, oh Oh, we're a week later, are we? What happened in that week? I don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows. So that was a bit disorientating. Yes, I will say that the action in here wasn't quite what I was hoping it to be, but it is the characters that I enjoyed from the first book, and getting to know them a bit more in this second book, which really carried this story. It is only a duology, so, and they are beautiful additions. I mean, just stunning. So this is something that I feel like I want to reread. I want to reread again without having to rush through it. And I don't mean that I rushed through it this time. I just feel like with a second read, I will see things that I maybe missed the first time, which will make me love it a bit more. This one got a 4 stars, so I did enjoy it. I feel like it was not as good as the first one, I don't think. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was 4 stars. The next book I read was my book club pick for the month, and I read that as an audiobook, I believe, and it was A Kind of Spark by Elle McNichol, I believe. And my notes on it say, clever use of comparing the witch trials in history to people treating autistic people today. And by that I mean that the witch trials, people were committed as a witch because they were not understood by the people around them, that they were different to everybody else. They were maybe quieter, they maybe didn't deal with things the same way as other people did, and so it was claimed as witchcraft, and I like that. And then learn what is a respectable way to speak about autism. Really like that because it was educational, but in such a way that it wasn't heavy-handed and it didn't feel like, you know, well, duh, this is the way you treat us. It was dealt with really well. I will say as well that the audiobook that I listened to was also read by a Scottish narrator, and that really helped with the authenticity of the story because it is set in Scotland. So that was really good. Although at some times my English ear couldn't quite catch the Scottish accent, but I did really enjoy it. And I gave this book, where are you now? I gave it 3 stars. I just wanted a little bit more. I don't know why, I just wanted a little bit more. But yeah, so that is that one. The next book I read was this massive hardback, Threadneedle by Carrie Thomas. My notes on this says, reminiscent of the movie The Craft, witchcraft coven with schoolgirls wanting revenge on bullies, slow beginning but great end. Yes, if you have watched and loved the film The Craft, you know, where a young girl, she starts a new school and she gets in with a crowd of girls who are the misfits in the school, and what she discovers is they are wannabe witches and they want to start a coven, and when she becomes involved, things actually start to happen because she actually has magic, and they use their magic to kind of in this case to take revenge on the people who have bullied them. But things don't quite go to plan and things get out of control, and our main character has to then pull back from the girls in her coven and you know, and have to deal with the consequences. I did enjoy this. There was this special form of magic that this girl has. She has been mistreated. I will say trigger warnings for manipulation and sort of mental abuse in here, because her aunt, who she lives with, I think it's her auntie, has told her all her life that magic is bad. You need to be bound. Your magic needs to be bound. You cannot use your magic. If you use your magic, you need to be punished, and it is a physical punishment as well. So there is physical abuse in here as well, and it's quite painful for this girl. She's learnt not to argue. She's learnt not to push. She wants to be invisible. She's learnt to be invisible, and she's bullied because of that. She's called the invisible girl at school and things like that. And so, yeah, it was very uncomfortable reading at times, especially with the scenes with her auntie, because you just want to shout at the girl, get out now, you know, because her auntie was such a nasty character. But I really like the ending of this book. I think there's another book. I don't think this is a standalone. I think this is the first book in either a duology or a trilogy or something. I'm not sure. I will have to check that. But yeah, I did enjoy it, and I gave Threadneedle 4 stars. The next book I read, I finally finished, because I had started this book in a previous TBR, but it got to the end of the month and I was only halfway through it, and I really wasn't pushing to finish it, so I put it back on my shelves. But I finally finished The Taking of Annie Thorne by C.J. Tudor. I did start from the beginning again with this, because when I originally started to read it in a previous TBR, I had started the book thinking our main character was a woman. Turns out it wasn't, it was a man. So that completely threw me off when it was shown to me that our main character was a man, because I'd imagined him as a woman. So I couldn't quite get my head, and I think that's why I put it back on my TBR and didn't finish it off, because I was completely thrown by the fact that I thought it was a woman at the beginning. This time though, knowing full well from the start that it was a man as our main character, it read a lot better for me. I was a lot more into the story this time, and I really did enjoy it. My notes are murder in the past, supernatural hinting, colliery town, kids mess with an old site, come back as adults to deal with what happened. There's a lot there. I was just making notes. So basically, yes, there was a murder in the past of, well, I say murder in the past. Was there a murder in the past, or was there a murder in the past? So our scene is a colliery town, and this man has come back to this town. It's his hometown where he grew up, but he moved out, and he's moved back to become a teacher, because one of the teachers at the local school has died. She has killed her son and then committed suicide, and it's a big story in the town, and he has come back to basically take her teaching position, but he has kind of come back because this is kind of, he's heard that this might have something to do with what happened to his sister when they were younger. Something happened to his sister when he was a teenager, and he's had this guilt all this time, and he's come back to try and figure out if this is happening again, and if it is, how to stop it. And so when he comes back to his hometown, he's not met with a happy reunion. Some of his old friends don't want him there, and they do everything in their power to get rid of him, to get him to leave the place again, to not dredge up the past. And there is some hint that there's something supernatural going on, but it's never quite confirmed, so you're not sure. I did enjoy it. I gave this a 3 stars. The language in this was very crude. There was a lot of F words and a lot of like rough speaking and stuff, and there was a couple of characters in here that I liked, but it was it was the kind of the is it or isn't it supernatural kind of question that was in here that kind of threw me off a little bit, because I want to know definitives. Is it supernatural or is it not? Tell me. Don't leave it being, it could be. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So it only got 3 stars from me. It was a good book. I'm glad I read it, but I'm probably never going to pick this up again. So it had to be a 3 stars for me, I'm afraid. So yeah, but if you like thrillers, give it a go. Could be interesting. So yeah, I will be unhauling this in the future. So if any of my friends fancy this, let me know. Because I have a pile of unhaul books that are just taking up far too much room. So the next one I read was finally The Murders at White House Farm. I was about halfway through this book at the beginning of the month, because I had started to read this sometime last year, and I got about halfway through and I hit a slump. I hit a reading slump and I just couldn't bring myself to finish this. My notes do say I started this in October 2020, and I hadn't watched a TV adaptation of the events of the Murders at White House Farm at that point. So I was going in this completely blind of the crime. So I was confused, and it was dry reading back when I first started reading in October. Now that I finished it this month, I have seen the TV adaptation. I think I watched it a couple of months ago, either on Netflix or Amazon Prime or something. So now I was able to understand and visualize better the events that were being described in the book. And I think that did really help. Having seen it visually on TV, I was able to visualize much better the events that were described in the book. Before that, I didn't have a clue. This one I did give a 3 stars. I will say it's non-fiction. There's a lot of information in here. It is about a crime, the murders at White House Farm. So there's a lot of police, detective jargon in here. There's a lot of characters in here as well, because you have all the different police officers that were working on the case. You have all the members of the family that are getting involved with evidence and witnesses, and well, not witnesses because nobody witnessed it, but you know, all of that sort of information. So there's an awful lot of information that you have to take in. This is what I was saying earlier. Sometimes adults non-fiction takes me just a little bit longer to take in, because there is so much information being given. It's a good book. As I say, I gave it 3 stars. It was good. I'm glad I read it. Probably won't reread it again in the future. I'll just watch a TV adaptation if I want to. But yeah, it was good. It was okay. I did read it a lot quicker this time than I did last time. I will say that when I was reading it in October 2020 last year, it took me all month to read half of the book. And I got to the end of the month and I was like, I'm not pushing this any further because I'm going into a slump. This time it only took me a couple of days to read the last half of the book. So that goes to show you the difference between having tried to read it when I hadn't seen a TV adaptation and then reading it after I'd seen a TV adaptation. It was just so much easier, to read, but it was the same book. The only thing that had changed was A, I'm not in a reading slump at the moment, and B, I'd seen a TV adaptation. So, I don't seem to have written my notes down on this, but I did read Pretties by Scott Westfeld, which is the second book in the Ugly series, which is one of my all-time favourite series ever. Well, trilogy. Well, series. There's 4 books. There's the original trilogy, and then there's like a companion novel that goes with them. I am buddy reading these with my good friend Charlotte, and yeah, we read Pretties together in August. I love the story. I just love the futuristic idea of this world that is trying to do all these things that we think would be perfect in a future world, and it turns out that they're not quite so perfect after all, and you know, people will always exploit situations. And yeah, I absolutely love this story. I'm actually wanting to read Scott Westerfeld's other trilogy, which is which starts with the book Imposters. So yeah, I'm wanting to read that one as well. I gave that 5 stars. Do I need to say anything more? And the last book I also read on my Kindle or my Amazon Fire, and that was an ebook of A Dowry in Blood. Dowry of Blood, sorry. I will put the author's name here because I don't seem to have written it down. This was a short and sweet ebook, but I wanted more vampirisms and kind of a blah ending. So this was, I read this basically at the end of the month because I had a couple of days left and nothing to read because I finished my whole TBR in August. And I just wanted more from this story. It was about sort of Dracula's wives kind of story. It was very short, but I wanted more. It was kind of like I felt like I wanted more from a story. I can't say much more than that. I had high hopes for this, and it was one of my anticipated reads. I think of either last year or this year, I can't remember. But it just didn't live up to what I expected it to be. As I say, Dracula is my favourite classic of all time, and it just felt a bit, because I didn't get enough of the Dracula bit. I didn't get enough Dracula. That's what it was. I didn't get enough Dracula. I didn't get enough vampire in this. So yeah, that was that one. And I gave A Dowry of Blood 3 stars. So yeah, I'm glad I read it. Yeah. So that was all of the books that I read in the month of August. So let's stop and give you all my statistics for the month. Okay, so there has been a camera angle change because my camera died on me. I had to wait for the batteries to charge up. And then my husband, I'm so lucky, my husband made dinner, so I stopped to eat dinner. And now we're back to do the stats. Okay, so my stats for August. I read a grand total of 17 books in August. That is awesome because it means I'm back on my reading game. I was really in a reading mood in August. I just flew through so many good books, and you'll see from my ratings how many good books I actually had, despite the problem with my bomb book. So 17 books in total. The physical pages that I read were 4,059. The e-pages I read were 248. The audio books that I listened to that I own a physical copy of was 36 hours and 45 minutes. And the total audio hours of books that I do not own a physical copy of was 4 hours and 25 minutes. The ratings of the book that I read, 5 stars this month. It's kind of difficult to choose which was my best book of the month, but I think that the book that my friend from book club loaned to me, The Girl from the Sea or Under the Sea, The Girl from the Sea, because I read that and now I want to buy my own copy, I think that has to be my book of the month, because I want to go out and I want to buy my own copy of this book. So it's got to get the best book of the month. But I would say that Black and British was also book of the month as well, because it surprised me. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was well presented, well delivered, and I think that book should be in every school. So both of those were my best books of the month. So I got 5 stars, 4 stars, 6 3 stars, 1 2 star, and 1 1 star. It's my first 1 star of the year. And I had no DNFs. Although I suppose you could count my 1 star as a DNF because I technically didn't finish it, but I don't care. We're counting it as a 1 star. The genres that I read 2 thrillers. I'm getting in that thriller mood, ready for the spooky season. I read 1 contemporary, 1 classic, 4 middle grades, 2 mangas and graphic novels, 2 non-fiction. That is a number that I'm very happy with. 2 non-fiction is good in a month. And I read 5 fantasy and sci-fi. The origin of the books that I read, 4 were borrowed and 13 were owned by myself. The format of the books, 12 were physically read, 4 audibly read, and 1 e-bookly read. It's a word, I'm making it up. E-bookly. The binding of the books that I read, 3 were hardback and 12 were paperback. That does include some of the physical copies of the audiobooks that I read. The genders of the authors, 7 were male and 10 were female. So yes, those were my stats for the month. I think I might start doing in my stats how many books out of my books that I've read in the month I am unhauling and how many I'm keeping, just so I can see, like, out of all of the books, how many am I keeping compared to how many am I reading. So I really want to make sure that every book that is on my bookshelves that I've already read once is definitely a book that I would reread again in the future. Unless it's part of a series, because I don't unhaul series until I've read the whole set, because some books in a series are not as good as other books, but overall I want to keep the series, or overall I want to unhaul the series. So series and trilogies and things like that aside, I want to make sure that every book that is on my shelf that I've already read once is a book that I am interested in the future of rereading again. If I'm not interested in rereading it, even if I did really enjoy it, if I'm not going to read it again, there's no point in keeping it. So thank you very much for watching. I know it's been a long one. I still hope that you enjoyed hearing my views on these books, even if it was an unfortunate dislike of one of your favourite books. But I hope you will stay with me, stay commenting and subscribing, and this outro is going completely nuts. I don't know where I'm going with it. I'll try again. I'll do what I normally do, because if I don't do what I normally do, I feel like I'm not finishing it properly. So let's do it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!